Welcome back, guys. We're here for part 2 of the Pivot Trailcat LT build. So if you missed episode 1, definitely go back and watch that first. But in this episode, we're going to get the drivetrain installed, the brakes installed, and get this thing pretty much wrapped up into a running bike.
Okay, Carter, so what's first?
We need to set up the drivetrain here, and to do that with transmission, we need to go onto SRAM's website and look up for this bike specifically what setup settings they require. There's a little chip down here as well as a specific setup cog that you need to be in. So we're going to go ahead and get those settings. But before doing that, we do need to throw the cranks in. We are going to be doing some GX cranks. These are probably not the cranks that are going to end up on the bike. Chris has a few ideas for some different cranks he wants to try out. But for now, these are a really solid, inexpensive option just to get this bike rolling and riding. So if you have not installed cranks before, I'm going to do a really quick explanation of how this works. In our last video with the Crux, everyone was super appreciative of explaining how this goes. But basically, this is a dub wide crank. It's a little bit wider because this is a super boost bike. But you're going to want to liberally apply grease to your bottom bracket. Now this is a press fit bottom bracket, which Pivot already pressed into the frame for us. So we can't show that, unfortunately, but it doesn't matter. It's the same process for installing the crank. So we're going to lube these up because we don't want these to squeak on us. And then we need to get the bottom bracket centered in the frame. And to do so, we're going to use these drivetrain spacers. And when you get a SRAM bottom bracket, you're going to get various different sizes of drivetrain spacers. It is a little bit of a guessing game to figure out exactly which ones go where, but the end goal, what you want to have happen, is that your crank has an even spacing on either side of your chainstay. So what we're going to be measuring for is that our crank spacing here to the chainstay is even on both sides. So here, just from the many bikes I've done in the past, I'm going to start with an educated guess, and that usually gets me pretty close. I'm putting a 3mm spacer on one end, and I have a 5mm spacer for the other end. Popped that guy out a little bit, there we go. And now I'm going to tighten the crank on, and we'll see where we end up. And now that that's snug, I can quickly double check that my cranks are centered on both ends, which I can tell that they are. I can also get a tape measure out as well to double check, but I'm pretty confident that this is the right setup. So we're gonna move forward with the install. As you can see, this is the spacing here that we're talking about. So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten up my cranks. Bring those fully tight. And what we're looking for is for this bolt to bottom out, meaning this crank is fully inserted onto the shaft. And then we're going to come over to this side to the preload adjuster. And now ideally, if our spacers and everything is correct, this preload adjustment screw is going to spin. And what we're going to want to do with this is threading down the crank, basically pressing against the bottom bracket here. And this is going to take out any of the slop in your crank so that they're perfectly tight. And we're just going to tighten this guy up until it gets snug. And then we're going to use this bolt here to tighten it up so that it doesn't move. On these SRAM ones, just be careful. This is plastic, and if you go too tight here, you can snap your preload adjuster, and then that's a pain as well. So we're just going to get that nice and snug, like right there, and now we're going to tighten this up, and that is the cranks installed. All right, and just like that, we have the drivetrain installed. So we did our cranks, chain, derailleur, everything is all installed. If you don't know how to throw on transmission, the best way to do it is just go to SRAM's website and watch their tutorial. It's really easy to follow along, but we don't need to go ahead and make a video just saying exactly what SRAM said. So we went ahead and threw this on. Next, we're gonna go ahead and get everything that we can swapped out to gold hardware. So Chris is gonna help out with that as well. But we're gonna get this bike pretty much decked out in all titanium. and then we'll throw the brakes on and we'll be pretty much set to go.
So we're putting on the motives on this bike. I'm interested to see how these things ride. I don't know that I fully understand what this is all about, because this is a Motive Ultimate, but it still does not have bite point. So I think this is just what's going to take over for the code. Does that make sense, Carter? Because now it's mineral oil.
Yeah, they switched the Motive over to mineral oil, and then the Maven's been on mineral oil.
Yeah, so I have a feeling all the other ones are going to become obsolete, and this is going to be the new trail brake. I just don't know why they called it an Ultimate if it doesn't have any bite point adjust, but it's not really necessary. This one did come with carbon levers, which were really flexy. So I think, one thing that our lever does is takes a lot of the slop out of the SRAM system. It's better one finger braking. It's much stiffer. There's no play this way in the system like there is in other with the stock levers. It's more ergonomic, especially for single.
If you can't tell, it's like 10 o'clock at night.
Braking. And then we also leave these machine marks in it, so it gives you texture. It's not grip, but it is for feel. And it definitely helps you relax your finger and just know that it's in the right spot at all times. It's kind of hard to describe without feeling it yourself. And I'm kind of digging the gold hardware on the silver.
Now he did say our brake levers. That is a Freedom Coast product, which is a sister company to Better Bolts. So you'll find a lot of our machined work and our machine parts coming from Freedom Coast. That's why you see our post mount brake adapters and our road brake adapters are Freedom Coast brake adapters sold on the Better Bolts website. But we're just gonna hammer this out. As I said, it's like 10 o'clock. We've been here since 7 a.m. working, getting orders out. So we're gonna go ahead and get the brakes run, and we'll catch you guys in a little bit when the bike's getting a little bit more finished. Alrighty, we're pretty close to being done here. It is getting pretty late. It's 10:30. We got here at 7 a.m. But everything's pretty much done. Forks on, wheels on, everything's hooked up. Brakes are plumbed, bled, everything's good to go. The only thing left before we can go to bed and then go ride it is getting this dropper post set up. This is an SDG Telus dropper, and we're gonna be running it on the tried and true wolf tooth dropper lever, which is, of course, one of the best options out in the market right now. I absolutely love that dropper lever. It actually uses a bearing as opposed to all the other ones pretty much just being on a bushing. This gives you a way smoother feel. I put that on like every bike I have.
I've never ridden an SDG dropper, so I'm interested to see how that goes. But I'm really anxious to sit on this thing. So something that we didn't realize until now, which is actually really cool, is that I don't know if you can see it, but those are little cable guides. So it's a little loop that the cables go through, and it secures it. So they are not actually flapping around inside the frame. They're actually secured there, and again here at the bottom where those little bolts are. Pretty cool.
Getting this ran through now. And just like that, we have this thing all finished up with the dropper installed. Chris is getting his cockpit set up. Tomorrow, we'll get this thing out in the sun. We'll get some beautiful B-roll, some sweet glamour shots, and then we're gonna go ride this thing. All right, it's time for everyone's favorite part. So we did this on the last video with the Crux, and we basically broke down the cost of this build. We took MSRP of everything, and we put it all up on the screen, and you guys can see, what it would cost to build something like this. Doing something like this, building everything as like a frame up, buying all the pieces on their own always is more expensive. Pivot themselves have some really, really good pre-built options that are optioned even better than this in some cases at the same or even lower price points. So when you're doing custom builds like this, it does always end up getting a little bit higher.
Yeah, and I do think it really goes to show that like sometimes you look at a high-end brand like Pivot and the build's, you know, $7,000, $9,000, whatever it is, and you're like, wow, that's way too much. But when you put all the pieces together,
it's more.
It ends up being more.
It's more because Pivot, when you're buying it all as a bundle, you know, you're getting a little break on some things. You're not paying full retail for everything, which it's hard to tell that you're getting that break because you're still spending 10 grand, but you really do get a better deal buying it like that. In our case, you know, we do have to extend a huge thank you to Pivot and Fox and a few other brands that, you know, helped out with this build. But without further ado, let's kind of get into the pricing. So as far as the frame goes, it's a little bit hard for us to get an exact price on the frame because Pivot does not sell this as a frame only. But the closest we can find from what Pivot sells their other frames for is that this frame would be roughly $3,500. Next, we have the Fox Float X Performance Shock. That's $519. Now that's one where I don't necessarily see the point in going into the performance. Yes, you can upgrade the performance to give you and we'll probably do that in a later video, to give you the low speed control here. However, the factory is $580. So you're only saving, you know, like 60 bucks. And I mean, maybe you want the black one, but you could get a Kashima coated with, this is a $20 part. So, I mean, you're right there. You're not saving that much money by going performance back here. Next, we have the brand new 2025 Fox 36 Factory Grip X. That came in at $1,150, so $1,149 pretty much. So, I mean, that's kind of speaks for itself. The suspension, we always go high end on the suspension. That's just what we do.
To me, that one's worth it.
That's where it's worth it. I mean, suspension.
There's a lot of deals on suspension right now. You can get a lot for your money. So
yeah, and this is MSRP. Like Chris just said, there's a ton of deals out there, but that's what Fox has this listed at. The next big ticket item, these Reynolds 329 Trail Pro wheels. This wheel set comes in at $2,300. So.
And you
pricey,
and even on Pivot's website, like when you choose the carbon wheel upgrade, it's a significant savings over that.
Yes.
I think they end up being like $1,500 or something. Don't quote me on that, but it's definitely way less than the $2,300.
It's about $2,000.
And to me,
jump.
Okay. And to me, that's one of the biggest upgrades you can do. They did a really good job with this wheel set.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a Reynolds carbon rim. You're getting a i9 Hydra. Like you're getting a super solid wheel set, and it's comparable price-wise to every other wheel set on the market. It's just another large cost driver for this build. But moving on, then we did a GX transmission on this bike. So that's gonna be $1,100. That's including the chain, cassette, cranks, derailleur, shifter, the whole nine. It comes in a big bundle for $1,100. Again, we think that is right where the bang for the buck is. The next jump up, I think, is $1,600 for XO, which has some weight savings, but at least quality-wise, it's just as functional as the GX. So we prefer the weight savings there. I do think Chris does have some XO cranks on the way. It was kind of a bundle between that bike needing a set of cranks and wanting to get this bike a little bit lighter. We'll reveal the total bike weight later, but
it just kind of worked out, and it's going to get us to a very happy spot.
Yeah,
weight wise. So, but yeah, it kind of just happened. So,
next we're going to do SRAM Motive Ultimate brakes. So as we said earlier, we're going to be swapping brakes around quite a bit, but this set is $550. I personally feel like that's a little high for what you're getting, especially with no bike control. You're just basically getting a motive with a carbon lever blade, which, as you see, we put the Freedom Coast lever blades on. That's kind of our whole thing. We're not the largest fans of carbon lever blades. I feel like they deflect a lot.
Yeah, I mean, going from that stock lever blade to our lever, it changes the entire feel of the brake. I'm just a little confused with this brake. First of all, I wouldn't put Mavens on this bike. Mavens would be just way too much, and they do sell some of the higher end kits with Mavens, and I don't really, it wouldn't be my choice. But I'm a little confused with these motives because these are motive ultimates, and there's still no reach adjust. So
there's reach, there's no bite.
Or no bite point, I'm sorry, yeah. And so I'm not quite sure what SRAM has in mind there. The brakes feel really good. I think they're the best feeling SRAM brake I've ever used.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably got something to do with this is your first time getting on their mineral oil setup, which is kind of a
I mean, I've ridden Mavens before,
Mavens, yep.
Which I don't think they're made for a trail bike. I think they're made for
powerful. They're very
downhill
powerful.
or
I
e-bikes.
think they're very helpful on e-bikes. Yep.
But yeah, these have been the best SRAM brakes I've used, and happy with them.
Yeah. I think the price point's a tad high, but either way.
I'm kind of waiting to see what they do with their lineup. I think this is an introduction into a new lineup, and I think that price point will probably have some cheaper options.
Yep. So next, we didn't do anything crazy fancy on the brake rotors. We just did the center lines. 2 of those rotors, it's gonna be $48 for the total. That's just to add up the price. SRAM dub bottom bracket, $46. Nothing wrong with that bottom bracket. It is bomb-proof and cheap as well, which is great. Stem-wise, we did the Hope Gravity stems. That was $140. I think that's a great-looking stem. They did some beautiful machine work there. Nothing too much more to say, but it's a really good-looking stem. Handlebars, Chris got the 1UP V2 carbon handlebars. Those are $160 MSRP, which is honestly lower than I thought. As far as carbon handlebars.
Yeah, I think that's a great price, especially when you look at other things priced on the market. And these are totally different from anything else you would see out there. There's like a big pinch in it right here.
Yeah, a little more compliance.
And thanks to 1UP for helping out with those. But these have been great. They feel significantly different than an aluminum bar. And, I would say that not all carbon levers do. Carbon bars.
And then next is the SDG Tellus V2 dropper post. That's $215. Now, price-wise, that's very budget. Quality-wise, we're not overly impressed.
Very budget.
It feels a little cheap, which, to be fair, is coming in at pretty much the lowest price point that dropper posts come in. I'm a big fan of the X-Fusion Manic, which is right around $200 as well. And to me has a bit more of a premium feel than this one does.
I've never used that, but I'm a fan of the bike yoke droppers.
Bike yoke comes in a little bit higher though.
A mechanical dropper, the bike yoke just feels premium, and I have it on a different bike.
Absolutely.
And when I go to this bike, the best way I can describe this, well, first of all, it works.
Yeah.
I have to say that. It works totally fine.
We're not having complaints with how it functions.
It works totally fine, but it's not smooth all the way through the stroke. Like it
sticks a little.
Not that it sticks, but it like ramps up at the bottom or something. Just a little something. But at the end of the day, it goes up and down. It does what it needs to do.
It does what it's supposed to do. And I've always been a huge fan of the bike yoke dropper post, but it's not too fair of a comparison because it's like double the price of this post.
I think if you need a dropper and you don't want to spend a ton of money, that's a great option. Perfectly fine.
Next, Wolf Tooth light action dropper lever, $55. Totally worth it. Makes even a lower end budget post that kind of has a high pull weight, makes it feel way better, at least up into the controls lever wise.
And I put that on every bike.
Yeah, that's on basically every bike.
Just so that all feels the same.
And it's super, super worth it, especially for $55. Tire wise, now, if you remember in video 1, we put Maxxis tires on this bike, and that's what I priced out. Chris has since switched to these Schwalbe tires, and he'll mention why in just a second. But the Minion DH R2, that's what we ran in the front, was $83. and the Maxxis dissector was 116. But we had swapped to these Schwalbes. As you can see, the bike's a little dirty. We're a little bit in the future now. Chris has been riding the bike because we couldn't keep him off of it for too long, but why did we swap to these tires?
So the reason I started with those tires is because that's what Pivot specs the bike with. And honestly, I feel like it's a bit of a mistake. I feel like it holds this bike back. I think the whole entire bike industry over tires their bikes because they want you to feel like it has a ton of grip right off the bat. But those tires are really heavy and really
Totally
slow for flatter trails. I lost almost 1.5 pounds switching to these tires, and the rolling speed is instantly noticeable.
Yeah, these are really sweet.
So these are the Schwalbe Wicked Wheels.
The Wicked Wheels. So I haven't seen the Wicked Wheel before. I think it's a new tire.
I think it's fairly new. I've never ridden it.
This is a really rad tire. It looks like an XC, like more of a downcountry tire that has a slightly larger knob on it. Like I've got ground controls on my Specialized Epic, and this looks very similar, but with just like a little more knobs. Like it's just a tad more rowdy than that.
Yeah, and I will say it immediately rolls way faster.
I mean, 1.5 pounds
and
of
1.5
rolling
pounds
speed.
of rolling is
rolling
huge.
mass, rotating mass. Big difference.
And I've only really ridden some flatter trails on them, but I'm already, even in some just like cruisy laps, like right at my fastest speeds. So this is going to be a really fast bike.
Yeah. And then in the interest of keeping the price total accurate to what we installed in this build, we did the Better Bolts titanium bolt kit. That ran us $280 MSRP. We did the Better Bolts Fox top caps as well as these orange Fox top caps over here. Those are $50 for both combined for both sides. We did a Freedom Coast brake adapter in the rear, $45, and Freedom Coast SRAM brake levers, $119 for the pair. And then lastly, there was DMR Death Grip 2s. Those are $28. So that brings the grand total of this build to build exactly what we put together in the video to $10,502, which is a great build. It puts you, minus the Better Bolts kit, puts you right on par with a Pivot XO build. And that's what we were saying earlier. When you price stuff out like this, when you do everything in pieces, it ends up being a little bit more expensive. We basically built that XO build, but with GX. Well,
there's some other changes.
Some other small changes.
But the thing is, I would have still had to swap things out on that build because it, like I said, it came with Mavens. And so it's, yeah, I think that XO build, if you are in the market for a build like that, is a really good deal.
Oh yeah, totally. But it does
as is their GX build.
It doesn't replace the fun or the satisfaction of picking every single part out and building what you want.
I mean, I feel very fortunate, but and if my wife ever watches this video, we had
total was 2,600.
yeah.
About, yeah.
But we had a lot of help, in all honesty. So I feel very fortunate to be on a bike this good, and very appreciative of everyone who chipped in. But I really like the way this bike is spec'd, and I know on paper it looks like a lot, but it's a really, really good, probably the best trail bike I've ever ridden. I mean, there's some other things that got carried over from other bikes as well. So like just full transparency, like pedals, saddle, things like that. And
I didn't add pedals and saddle to the build. That is an important note. The reason I didn't do that is everyone has their own pedals and saddle they run, and those commonly get brought over from different bikes. So I felt that was necessary to omit.
Yeah, I think we have a little bit more laying around than the average person, so a lot of things got swapped over to this bike. But man, I'm really excited to go ride this on some proper trails because this thing rips.
Yeah, so we will be making another video where we really do first ride impressions. I know that we have already ridden this bike in this video, but we have footage of our first impressions on the bike and really setting this thing up and getting it ready to rip. The total bike weight here was 31 pounds, 10 ounces. That was how much it weighed when we put it together. Chris did already say he lost 1.5 pounds on this bike just by swapping tires. We're gonna lose, I don't know, not quite 0.5 pound, but we'll lose quite a bit swapping the cranks over to XO. And we may have a few other little things here and there to drop a bit more weight. But
My goal is under 30 pounds.
Dude, an under 30 pound trail bike, that's 150. It's 150, 135.
Yeah.
150, 135, under 30 pounds. Like that is an absolute monster of a trail bike.
Yeah. And by the way, it does not feel like 135 in the rear.
Yeah.
This bike feels like totally bottomless to me. It feels like a mini Firebird is what it feels like.
That's rad. Yeah. So we're really stoked on this build. We hope you guys enjoyed. As always, we love doing this little price breakdown at the end and kind of discussing everything on the build. But make sure to catch us in video 3 where we go over actually riding the bike and our first impressions. Thank you guys so much.